Hello again, and welcome back to the Power Podcast with me, Joe, and we have Alex.
Hello.
And Sam.
Hey.
That worked well. We're doing quite well, and let's continue to do well. So, this episode is going to be about weapon physiology. For those of you who don't know, it's literally just the power to turn into a weapon that either someone wields or just exists, I guess. Basically, you turn into a weapon. It's a similar form of shape-shifting. You have all the physical properties of whatever weapon, or maybe you have even more special properties. For instance, I'm just going to rattle off like 3 examples, because we're actually going to get more into the actual power topic rather than examples and references. But here we go. Megatron, the very first Transformer series, he's able to turn into a gun. Soul Eater. Most of the different characters are known as demon weapons. They can turn into special weapons that have semi-magical properties. And finally, damn it, there was another one that I had and I cannot remember it now.
I can't believe you're not mentioning One Piece.
There we go, thank you, One Piece. Although, it's the opposite, because most weapons are actually weapons that have somehow eaten devil fruits that are animals. So actually, it's a gun that turns into an elephant. It's a sword that turns into an elephant. It's a gun that turns into a dog. However, there's one person who can turn into any weapon. They have the I think it's literally just the weapon fruit or something like that, or the arm fruit or something. Basically, it allows them to turn into any kind of weapon. They can turn into swords, guns, bombs, anything, and they are unharmed when they explode. They can do all sorts of different types of things. They can even turn their own finger into like a scope, so they can look through their own fingers, and so on and so forth. So anyway, that's basically it. We'll now get into this. Good and bad parts. I'm going to let Alex, let's go start with you on the bad. What is bad about this power, in your opinion?
Well, actually, there's from a social point of view, it's kind of awkward because you are turning into a weapon. Like with a lot of superpowers, like there are some not non-lethal applications for some things. Like if you're a pyrokinetic, you could just be like a chef or something, or if you're the hydrokinetic, you just like pour water or distill water. You are literally turning yourself into a weapon. Like you're turning yourself into something that's always dangerous, and that can be just very awkward, really, because especially if you don't want to be, a weapon.
Yeah.
If you don't want to, if you don't want to be wielded, if you just want to live a normal life, but you just have this capability to, do an incredible amount of lethal bodily harm to people, and you can't really get around that. I think that's. I think that's the basis of like a sequel to the Soul Eater series, where it's just incredibly awkward, where a bunch of demon weapons don't want to be weapons; they just want to be
That is
normal.
100% true. There are quite a few
Yeah.
people who can turn into weapons that don't like it. In fact, you get in the manga, which I really, 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 really hope that they actually do a reboot where it actually is based on the manga. But basically, the manga itself shows basically Soul Eater, the titular character, even though that he's not actually like the most main, but I guess he is kind of the main character. He can turn into a scythe, and he discovers this, and both his grandmother and his brother tell him to basically enroll in this academy that actually trains these people up so that they can be weapons that eventually can become basically demon killing weapons and monster killing weapons that are then eventually used by death itself, and they're called death weapons or death scythes, and he's a scythe, so he is the perfect possible candidate to eventually become the next death scythe and become wielded by death himself. And in the backstory he goes, yeah, I just want to be a musician, just like the rest of our family. And his brother says, look, you can always do that as a hobby, but you're the first person in our family to ever have this power. You gotta give it a try. You know. And he goes, you're pretty chilled out, but you're also very flexible as a person, so you could do this. And so that kind of shows a little bit of it. You do see certain people who kind of take into their own hands, the capability of their powers a bit too much. Like some of them will, turn into a weapon and be like, yeah, I can do all this stuff. I can eat the souls of living, and so on and so forth. Because Soul Eater is about that. Because since they're magical weapons, they have special magical properties.
See, that would be a nightmare for me because I don't like the idea of having destiny thrust upon me, and it's like 'cause that's really harsh. Actually, I didn't know that because I've not read the manga,
Actually,
but that's like,
they're not at all destined. Like some of them live normal lives
but
because they
but
don't want to
still,
fight.
yeah, because they don't want to fight. But it's like it's sort of that pressure nonetheless. It's like you have this, and it's like all those plans and stuff that you had in your life. Oh, completely changed now. It's like, I mean, I think that you can have that with any superpower, but especially this power. It's like, whoa, yeah, like, you know, I might be
I
missing
am
a
a weapon.
huge opportunity. Yeah, I could be like missing a huge opportunity to fight evil or do evil by not utilizing this. So it's just a dilemma. I like that,
It's
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 yeah.
also it's also that form of like removal of plausible deniability, like how they try and do in Doctor Who, where it's like he doesn't really like guns, he doesn't like people with guns, and he doesn't like the usage of guns. And he says this because it's like guns are specifically designed to shoot and kill. They are designed to hurt, maim, injure, or kill. Whereas like certain things like big old hammers could still be used for like deconstruction and construction. They swords, technically you could just use them to cut things and so on and so forth. Guns are a little less plausibly deniable, but if your power is to turn into something like this, and it's like, oh, it's a big old axe, or oh, it's literally a gun, or oh, it's a death cannon or something like that. It's like it's hard to say, oh, I can be used for good or evil. Because there's still that thing of like, well, some people consider the usage of weapons evil in the first place, regardless of who's using them. Others don't, but it's still that thing of that could really warp a person's personality, either to create a complex or just make them a bit upset about the way that their powers are for them. I don't know. What do you think about the downsides of this kind of power, or like the bad parts of this power, Sam?
Well, to be honest, the way Alex's line of thinking, it made me think of Wolverine. You like the people who say, "I am a weapon," like I'm a living weapon. People here like have this like thrust upon them that they are weapons, without actually turning into weapons. Or like, imagine how badly like someone who gets, let's say, mind controlled, but slaved somewhat. People who are like who are like literally weapons, trying to get them out of that mindset. That point when they literally are weapons.
Yeah, kind of like I am a slave to my power. I am a gun, so therefore I was destined to be a killer, or at least destined to be an instrument of killing.
Exactly. The example I thought was Thane as well. Another one besides Wolverine was Thane from Mass Effect, who is an assassin. He's like, well, my body is a weapon, but my mind is not. But he can't turn into a weapon. If he could turn into a weapon, his body would literally be a weapon.
Actually, that kind of like messes with the whole mantra of it's not people who, it's not guns that kill people, it's people that kill people. What if you're a person who is a gun?
Well,
Have I
that
blown your mind?
I still think that's the equivalent of if someone holds your hand to choke someone, and you don't have the ability to fight back against someone holding your hand, or even something as simple as like, say for instance, someone is literally, as we said last week, using your body as a nunchuck, and you are smashed heavily against someone, like so strongly that it would definitely kill them, and if you don't die from that, but you are used as an instrument of killing for someone else, is that equivalent? Just because you can turn into a weapon, or just because that someone can use you like one, doesn't necessarily mean that you're the killer. It just means that someone had the ability to kill, or had the capability of wielding you in such a manner. Even if you can turn into a gun or into a sword, if you can't shoot, if you don't have the choice of the matter, then yes. But if you willingly turn into a weapon and go, yeah, I'm fine with you like grabbing me and thrusting me into the chest of this unsuspecting person, or oh yeah, I'm fine with you turning me back into my gun form and shooting this guy, I feel like that's kind of a little less of a grey area. Like, you literally are saying, no, yes, use me, and then if it's, the whole thing of, no, say, for instance, you can't control when you turn back, or, say, for instance, if there is a weakness of, like, oh, if someone's holding you as a weapon, you can't detransform until they let go of you. And then you have no choice in the matter. Whereas, like, if you have control, if you're able to stop it, but just choose not to, that, again, it's grey area, but yeah, I think there is a fairly easy, discernible, I don't know. I feel like Sam, you are right, and obviously so are you, Alex.
Right. To be honest, I was going to ask, would you say then that Wolverine is not to blame for all the people he's killed, considering he was mind altered to be a color?
He was literally brainwashed. Like like his entire personality. Like when he breaks out of it, he's haunted by those things. But it's like not necessarily him. It is his ferocious animal instincts. But he himself wouldn't do that of his own accord until when he does in certain comics. But there are comics where like he goes up against people and he doesn't actually attempt to kill them in such ways, and there are times that he's brainwashed or he goes into a berserker rage and he does attack innocent people. But when he is actually aware of his surroundings and he is actually not being mind controlled, he doesn't just suddenly go on a rampage and kill people for the sake of it. So I think I still think someone is using him as a weapon. It just, to us in most circumstances, it seems like as if they are of their own free will, but we don't always know what's going on inside them, which is always kind of a tricky part when it comes to not knowing the actual like inner workings of the person's mind and the knowledge of what they are actually doing. Like for instance, hypnotism, brainwashing, mind control, or even just doing it of your own accord, or doing it because you had no other choice because that you saw something that they didn't. For instance, the concept of if we can't see a monster in front of us, they just seem like a human. And then someone then kills them. We're like, well, we perceive that this person is a monster, but the true fact is that they're actually a demon or a monster or something like that. But again, it then creates that grey area of like, well, it's the whole. From my perspective, the Jedi are evil, so it does create that sort of.
They are.
Moving on.
No, I mean anyone who thinks the Jedi aren't are not right.
Hey, Sam! Only a Sith deals in absolutes.
I mean, that is an absolute statement there as well. That in itself is an absolute.
So,
anyway.
What would you say? Okay, so I'm just going to say this. I would say the bad sides are, it really depends, because, for instance, the Transformer one, Megatron is able to turn out of his gun mode even when someone is holding him. In terms of certain forms, if someone has magical abilities, magical bindings, or even soul wavelength manipulation, they can force a weapon to stay in their weapon form in Soul Eater. Sometimes, if a person's soul wavelength or willpower is strong enough, they can forcibly detransform themselves. So, again, meh. But when you then see Baby 5, she completely can control and turn any part of her body into any part of weaponry in one piece, meaning that she has complete autonomy and control of any kind of weapon that she can have and will use. For instance, she turns her entire leg into a Gatling gun, and she just sits atop this building and just fires it off into the crowd and just starts killing people. Another time she turns her hand into sort of like a sword, sort of axe blade, sort of glaive sort of weapon, and she attempts to try and, cut someone's throat. She has 100% autonomy, and therefore people don't have to wield her. I mean, I think she could turn her entire body into a gun or a sword, but she doesn't necessarily always seem to do that. But still, again, point is there. So I'd say like the bad side for it is really dependent on how the power works, the limitation of whether or not a person can or can't wield it. I'd say another thing that is, I'm just going to add to this, the bad thing is they can only usually often turn into only one weapon. Or, for instance, they can't, like when they're a weapon, they can't do anything. Like, a weapon doesn't normally move. Now, if we're actually talking about weapon physiology in on itself, there is the hybrid forms, like the partial weapon transformations. For instance, in One Piece they have, as I said before, Baby 5, she turns parts of her body into weapons, so not the whole body into weapons. but you then have like the dog that is a gun. It has like 4 legs, so it can walk around and then fire out powerful like shots that do a lot of damage.
That's adorable. That's absolutely
There's
adorable.
the elephant that can turn into a saber, but the truth is it's actually a saber that can turn into an elephant. And whenever it turns into an elephant, it then can do whatever its master tells it, because whilst whoever is wielding it, they're the one in control of the elephant.
I think that is another problem, though, isn't it? It's like this is a power that is sort of has a built-in sort of combo thing, isn't it? It's like, yeah, you could like, if you have like, there's maybe 5 who could like use it completely autonomously, but a lot of the time there is this idea that you kind of belong to someone, or like someone has to wield you to get your full potential if you're limited to doing certain things.
Well, this is what I was sort of going to merge in with the both the great and the bad and the good, which is the bad part is you feel like you're owned by someone. Good part is if you don't see it in that way, or at least if it's not used in that way, it's actually a very social power. You can turn into a weapon that can actually help another person fight in a better way. For instance, if you're a person who can turn into a katana, the weeaboo fight magic monk suddenly becomes a lot better. Or even like you turn into a Tommy gun and someone really loves SMGs. Something like that. Someone who's proficient in the type of weapon you are, or someone who can learn the type of weapon that you are. It then becomes a very great duo. I'd say that's the good upside. What would you say is the good parts, Sam? Let's say like a good point about this power.
What is a good point about being able to turn into a weapon?
I know
Yika
stuff, but I'll
doodles.
let you.
Okay, go on, Alex.
Okay then, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, fine. Just shit all over my character. I've got
then.
a gun, fine.
I wasn't even gonna say. I wasn't even gonna say that. I was going to try and think of one that, beyond the power itself. What benefits do you get with having the power beyond being able to turn into a sword? Okay, then Alex, you start first then.
Well, I was gonna say that, when you actually like have guns and stuff, you can like eventually these things are gonna break, or they're gonna, die or whatever. They're gonna fail you eventually. Whereas like if you have weapon physiology, you can actually it lasts as long as, the person who is the weapon is doing it. Like you have a gun that is potentially, gonna last for like, the human lifespan. And you can just like, and it does depend on the limitations, but how the Animite Tales does it is that you turn into that gun, and like once the durability is broken on your gun, you just detransform, and then you like, you've got mimic fatigue or something. But it's like, the next day, if you're just rested up, it's exactly the same gun with the exact same durability all over again. So if you had like a real, gun, real weapon, then it would just be broken forever, irreparable, where you've basically just got a permanent gun, and that's, I don't know, that's just useful. Like
So long as they don't die.
Yeah. As long as they don't die. I mean, this is the thing. You have to actually, yeah, you could actually, that could be like insurance and stuff. It's like, well, you have to keep me alive, because if I die, you've just like lost, one of the best guns that you have that's going to last forever. It's like no matter,
Practically a free gun.
yeah, free gun,
Or free sword
also completely undetectable as well. Like if you don't have superpower, fighting powers, you are always open carry. Like no one's gonna like figure out that
I mean,
you can
yeah,
just transform into a gun.
like
Yeah.
if someone has the ability to turn into a weapon, unless if someone knows that you turn into a weapon, like again, plausible deniability. You have this situation of like, well, I mean, like there is no plausible deniability for my powers. I turn into a weapon. Weapons are usually used to fight or maim or kill or harm. But again, the plausible deniability is the opposite of like if someone is in their human or non-weapon form, it's like, well, this is just an average citizen or just an ordinary creature, and then suddenly they can turn into a weapon rather than you carrying a katana on your side or carrying a gun in a holster.
Oh my god, I've just realized as well, like if you can turn into like a massive warhammer, like you don't have to carry your warhammer carries itself. It can
Yeah,
just
yeah.
be transported anyway. You know, you don't go through metal detectors or whatever. You go completely unfamiliar. And then it's like this massive great axe is just appears out of nowhere. It's brilliant.
It's like,
Yeah, in fact, it's yeah.
that's a Tommy gun. Like, there's like, what are you gonna do with that? Arrest him? But then it's like, nah, just two friends or a couple walking around town. Suddenly, bad guys try and mug you, or suddenly you need to commit a heist, or either of the different styles of encounters where you suddenly need a gun. Suddenly, partner turns into a gun, you now have the ability to fight back. It's always a possibility.
Also, it's like yeah. Go on. Yeah, sorry.
That'd be a good way to get out of like a basic prison as well. If they just put your Tommy gun in like an evidence locker, as like turns out they didn't actually think it that far ahead. He just escapes, grabs their guns, just
he just bursts out of the evidence locker like boom.
It's just like one
Rambo.
Of those, yeah. No, you know what would be great is like they burst out and it's like like aha, well I can get out, and then eventually like they just lock them up as well. But again, even if they didn't, right, and they just lock them up, if they went to like say for instance like in certain prisons like you're still able to see like your previous like cohorts, you could just have it that like you're walking around in like the yard, or you're walking around in like the cafeteria. Suddenly, dude turns into a Tommy gun. Guy picks him up. Again, the Tommy gun is now out of his handcuffs. Suddenly, you're just gunning down people, just trying to get back out. Probably not the best.
Turned into a John Woo movie.
Pretty much. So I mean, okay, so that's plausible deniability, hiding in plain sight. Yeah, that's a good one. Sam, do you
probably
have...
It'd be very, very, very cheap to get around places because you can just mail yourself everywhere. And like, depending on what item you are, of course, because there's like melee and ranged. Probably easier for melee weapons to get shipped around the world than ranged weapons.
Yeah, because you could always just say that you're an ornamental piece or a replica.
Yeah, I'm a Warhammer collector, so I am.
Yeah, but imagine the postage. You know what? I think the postage for a giant Warhammer would be more than a plane seat. So I'm just kind of.
It'd just be so great. Just no, you don't understand. I'm a huge weeb.
It's like, well, obviously, sir, but we still can't mail this for you. You'll have to pay for like special delivery.
You remember you have to be home whenever it's delivered as well.
Oh God!
No,
oh my God!
What would be great? Yeah, but if you're in
stuck in my cardboard though.
If you're
stuck in the cardboard, so no one opens you up,
and suddenly someone just goes, okay, right, anyway, knocks on the door. Well, I guess he isn't signed for. Bursts out of the cardboard box. All right, cheers. Thanks for the ride home. Wait,
that would be great for like. You
can also then just say. You can also then just say at the end of it, "Ta-da!" and then suddenly the dude just thinks that it was a magic trick all along, and then that's it. Like again, hiding in plain sight, perfect mail. Honestly, it's the best power, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it is. Yeah, we've got.
No.
I mean, no, it's also. Yeah, I was going to say something as well. Like, we talked about this as well for a potential for a character. Because, like, while you're in weapons mode, because weapons don't have to breathe or, eat or anything like that. Like, I think we had this idea where it was in a treasure chest. And, you would just basically, in order to escape, you would, lock yourself in that treasure chest. And, like, as long as you could keep your transformation up, you could stay in there indefinitely if it was, like, rust-free. And stuff, because you'd still be, susceptible to rust like any, weapon would, and when you finally rusted away, then you'd have to detransform. But you could basically just put yourself in suspended animation for a time, hypothetically.
I mean, in certain circumstances, there would be an allowance for that. I mean, obviously, there would be other universes where it would just be like, no, all weapons age by a certain amount. So, in other words, even if you're permanently in your weapon mode and then like you come out of it 90 years later, you are now a 90-year-old person. Like there could be ones where again, as you said, it suspends you. Like, you don't need food, you don't need this, that, the other, and you don't even age. Like, it depends on the allowance. But again, as we said from the previous bad and good things, it all depends on the allowance and the ways that the powers work in general.
Also, you might go insane if you're in, a box with just your own thoughts for company.
Definitely. I mean, at that point, who's to say that, like, the second that chest opens, that you aren't just going to spring out instead of actually staying as gun, or staying as sword, or decorative...
I'm crazy!
Decorative
I'm crazy
Prince
guns!
of Persia dagger. So I'll get now into this portion, which is like the usual mechanical aspects of this power. Again, you turn into a weapon, pretty simple. As we said before, though, some of them usually have special effects. For instance, you can turn into a weapon, turn out of a weapon. You have infinite ammo. You require ammo. You become a sword that is impervious to certain forms of attack. You just become an ordinary sword. There are many different aspects of it, and I took as many of the different ones as possible from all the different bits and pieces that we have from other media. And the versions that we have in Animite Tales, as such, are lore-wise, because I'm not going to get into the mechanics. Lore-wise, it's pretty much as simple. Your body is able to completely shapeshift into an object, into a weapon. It is either a ranged weapon, in other words, a crossbow, a handgun, SMG, blah blah blah, any kind of ranged weapon. Or a melee weapon. Any kind of melee weapon, from dagger, sword, great sword, or ultra great sword, to suddenly, I don't know, a Reaper's Scythe, a Kasurigama, a throwing knife, or even, I don't know, something as simple as like a great axe or a staff or anything.
Oh, I think also there was one. There was like a baton or something, or some kind of like, blunt instrument, like a club or something.
Club. Well, you can become any weapon. Yeah. Like you get to choose it in the game, and pretty much the way that it goes is like, you choose it, you have it, and so on and so forth. You have a certain amount of durability, as you said, Alex, and pretty much once that durability goes to 0, the weapon shatters. And you get what's known as mimicry fatigue, which means that to transform back into it, it is at disadvantage, and it only has half as much durability. Also, if the damage that was dealt to you broke past your durability, it then goes into your health, and if that then also breaks past your vitality, it can then cause an injury. And so that's kind of a bit of the problem. The more powerful that weapon becomes, the stronger the durability becomes, and eventually you get one of the two different special aspects. Ultimate weapon form, or weapon of legend. And basically, the way that it works is, ultimate weapon form, pretty much it is either the biggest, the baddest, the most over-the-top weapon, or it's a mechanical weapon. For instance, it can either be just like, instead of a normal sword, a huge sword that is just over-the-top anime OP, or even something like a chainsaw because it's mechanical, or something like out of like Bloodborne, like a hammer that like has like a little like explosive gunpowder in it, so when you hit someone it then strikes and then does an impact blast or something, like a little explosion. For the guns, you can have just an ultimate gun mode where basically it does more damage, double damage, whatever. Or you can have a self-automated gun, sort of like a turret. And then for Weapon of Legend, aka Elemental Rounds, you get a special random effect. It's basically similar to like the Weapons of Legend, like Excalibur, Mjolnir, Jarnbjorn, stuff like that, where like legendary weapons may have the ability of like controlling the very wind and flying back to its master, summoning lightning, having the power of nullifying any special effects, or even something as simple as like summoning fire, controlling water, stuff like that. And ranged weapons just get these elemental rounds, like special abilities like spatial shots or fire shots, or what was it like dark energy blasts and stuff like that.
Yeah, dark energy, lightning, doesn't have nullify, but spatial fire, the usual good stuff of
But on top of
firing
this,
things at you.
they work similar to a special weapon known as an animite infused or an animite weapon, where a person is able to put their own powers through it. So in other words, if someone's wielding you, they can shoot or imbue their own powers through the weapon itself. For instance, if you have like pyrokinesis and you can like do fire blasts, you can fire a shot from a gun that does your fire damage plus the projectile damage of the gun. Or if someone has a sword and they have electrokinesis, they can either put the lightning through it, or probably a better explanation would probably be more like decay or something like that, or absorption, because obviously, you know, electricity. Obviously, you can conduct electricity through metal weapons anyway. But either way, you can just use your powers through that sword, so you can add more damage to it in the first place, on top of having any of these extra special weapon modes. So that's how it works in Animite Tales. That's pretty much it. Again, without going into the usual things of the mechanics and so on and so forth. But pretty much it works like a combination of all the different ones that we've done so far. As I said, the Baby 5 one, because you also get partial weapon transformation. The Soul Eater one, because you can actually imbue your willpower techniques or your powers through them, just like in Soul Eater, they're able to put their own special abilities and attributes through it, through their soul wavelength connection abilities. Basically magic. And pretty much like, as I said before, like the Transformers, where the person can turn it into a weapon and is wielded by them, and basically they are able to use it on top of any other arsenal or weaponry or other things that they may or may not have, basically to bolster characters that may not very well be able to fight on their own. For instance, usually most of the time it's Starscream who uses Megatron, even though that I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be that Starscream is actually pretty damn capable at fighting of his own accord, but I don't really know or care. But
I mean, there's a huge. You just pissed off like half the internet right now. It's like Starscream has his reasons for doing that. Okay, you know he's a complex character,
yeah,
and he's got his own
I'm
motivations.
sure he must have. But anyway,
I mean,
so
thing is though, you could be super strong but still be a coward.
absolutely. But that's what I'm sort of getting at. Is it's not really necessarily about that. It's more about just Starscream may or may not have actual like skills with firing a gun, and it's the same with anyone in Soul Eater or in One Piece. You might not be very good at fighting without a weapon, so therefore you have the weapon with you that is also actively a different being, creature, or person, whether they're on your side or not. So either way, you have that. So that being said, if you were to put this in any other normal scenario, a person who can turn into a weapon is still considerably a very dangerous thing. Because if you're able to use your powers through them, as well as they might have special abilities with them, it becomes a very deadly thing. For instance, you know, a sword that can control and manipulate and generate fire, and you're also, I don't know, pyrokinetic. You can now do even more fire damage with this weapon. Or, say for instance, the weapon does nullification, and you yourself are not someone who has any powers in general. Or, for instance, you do have powers, but your powers are more best suited to close range. So therefore you just use the sword and cut through anything that was made out of powers, so that therefore you can like sort of dispel it, similar to the anti-magic swords from Black Clover. Yes, I started watching it.
Yay!
It's all right.
It's like, you know, like, yay! It's like, yeah, what an endorsement. It's all right.
It's all right.
I watched it. Right?
I'm upset that they apparently have a hiatus, because, you know, I would like it to either just end properly or continue going, but I'm not up to those episodes yet, so who knows? Maybe I don't have to care yet. Anyway, yeah. So that's what I mean. Like any kind of special abilities or stuff like that. But what intrigues me is more just the fact of, you know, they create either a partnership between the wielder and the weapon, or it creates a culmination of really cool powers to go together. Like either it's like power synergies, or it's more like personality, like dynamic duo creation, like an actual like interesting way to create a plot thing. Like, a couple of episodes ago, Alex, you said about a cursed sword that had a personality of its own and feasted on the souls of others. From...
Oh yeah.
I cannot remember the series. What was it called?
I can't remember. It was like, well, it was, oh, dear. What was it?
Stormbringer?
Something Slayer. Yeah, no, it's Stormbringer or something like that. Yeah, that was the name of the sword. It was
Elric, whatever his name was.
yeah, Elric. Yeah,
And yes,
a whole series about his downfall.
yes, and that's a kind of interesting thing of like, it could be a possessive personality. The sword itself could actually be possessing people, or instead of resonating with them, or it could create an interesting story element of a dynamic duo, or basically a person who is just pretty much a victim of this demonic weapon or object.
So I'm just remembering if anybody's seen like the latest not the latest but like an episode or so ago from our Dev Plays stream, Arsenal, played by our lovely Graham, is in that situation right now, and I shudder to think what he's getting up to with Derek, who he's currently possessed.
Yes, he's a gun who can turn into a pistol, an assault rifle, an RPG, and a sniper. And he turned into a pistol, and when he was picked up by one of the guards, he then possessed them. So he's now basically holding a pistol and just literally like completely possessed by the personality of Arsenal. So that is really funny. So Graham again, just brilliant, absolutely brilliant there.
Well, as we said before, the problem with that is that he will always have to be holding the gun in order to keep possession. So they're gonna start asking questions like, "Honey, why are you cocked and ready and fully loaded?"
Cocked, locked, and ready to rock.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair though, that does sound like an end game movie plot of like an end game movie plot of one of those sort of a more down to earth sort of like abuse story where it's like at the end the guy who's just starting to lose grips on his family just comes back home, clearly been drinking and doing who knows what, comes back and he's just not letting go of this pistol in his hand. I mean, it doesn't help that Arsenal himself is actually also an addict at the moment, so it's literally like, honey, why do you have that pistol? Don't ask me questions.
Even better.
This sounds like a Lifetime movie, to be honest.
It does, doesn't it?
Even better, you see, the family that shoots together stays together. Yeah, let's come up with a name. Shooting Straight.
Is this film endorsed by the NRA?
Well, probably. See, NRA, make this film.
The only thing that can keep the family together is guns
by holding them at gunpoint.
I mean, literally, yes. I was going to say you could have called it the Stockholms if it weren't for the fact that that's already a thing.
No.
If nobody's watched that,
come on, really?
Side-Eye Happiness, the Stockholms, it's brilliant. It's about like 8 short episodes. It's about a guy who started robbing a bank, and basically he's been in a hostage situation for 18 months. And he's just got basically a fake family of all of his hostages.
Oh my god!
Right at the end, they call themselves the Stockholms.
The Stockholms. Yeah, because it's even worse because you rolled for like the family, and you rolled like a D2, whether Derek was happily married or unhappily married, and Derek was happily married, and he's got 2 kids. So we're about to ruin their entire lives.
I mean, yeah. But that's my point. Like, you suddenly turn into the one ring, except from it's the one gun, the one sword, the one axe, the one knife. I don't know, whatever you want to turn into. But I was actually going to say another bad thing is a lot of the time people can only usually turn into one gun in the terms of usual storytelling. For instance, Megatron can only turn into a pistol. Anyone in the Demon Weapon collection of Soul Eater can usually only turn into one type of object or weapon, and it's completely a lucky draw. Although, It does seem to have a bit of a strange one to do with their names because, Tsubaki, a Tsuba is, it's the crossguard on, it's the little crossguard on a katana, and she turns into a ton of different ninja weapons, but her truest weapon is actually supposed to be one that she gets from her brother, who is actually an enchanted sword, and it is an actual katana. You've then got You've then got Soul Eater and Spirit. They're both named after specific things to do with spirits and eating and consuming of souls. They turn into scythes, which are the personal weapons of Death himself, reaping equipment basically. And then the Thompson sisters, who both turn into handguns. I mean, they're not exactly always directly affect, stuff like that, but still, it's kind of still interesting to some degree, I guess. But yeah, they can all only turn into one weapon, but Baby 5, she can turn into any type of weapon. But again, she's the only type of her, or all of the types of powers. She's the only one of her kind.
Yeah. I mean, I must say it is it's like. Yeah, it really is dependent on the world, isn't it? Because, in the world of Animite Tales, you could, in theory, have, a bunch of people that, or each of them turn into a different weapon. And the way that it works is that, they have, a lot of damage as those individual weapons. And, alone, they're, not that impressive, but together, they're, an entire weaponry. They're, an actual... They're not just an army. They're, a weapon... They're, an armory... and army.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Here's a question for you, because I guess we'll get into sort of what would you want? What would you want? I still need to come up with a jingle for this. Anyway, so Sam and Alex, if you could turn into any weapon, what would it be?
Personally, I'd be a bazooka.
Of course.
I'd be a bazooka. You know what? If you're gonna go hard or go home, I say. It's just and I would have partial weapon transfer, so someone could wield me. So because honestly, you're not gonna argue with
this is straight bazooka. Up. You could only be this weapon. You can't do partial, nothing like that. It has to only just be the weapon. So
screw it. I don't change my answer. I want to be a bazooka because no one's gonna argue with a bazooka.
Fair enough. One. What about you, Sam?
I mean, I just keep thinking of the joke answer of, probably the world's most terrible, most ultimate weapon, television.
That's not a weapon, Sam.
Boo! Boo!
That's an object.
I watched Watchmen recently, and that's still stuck in my head. Is this another ultimate weapon? Yes, you could say that. TV. What would I be?
All right, a non-pretentious answer.
a non-pretentious answer.
No, because he might come up with a super pretentious weapon, and I really want to hear it.
Say. Well, I don't really know that many weapons. I mostly, when I go for things, tend to go for fists.
Which are the deadliest weapons?
I've seen The Matrix. I know that to be true.
I like the idea that Sam actually just becomes just a knuckle duster, and
I
become lefty and righty.
Oh my god! Split yourself in half as well. Yeah, it'd be like,
you know what I'd be? But I'd be out of all the weapons. See the dubstep one from
Saints Row the Fourth. As soon as you said TV, I thought he's gonna go for some techie thing.
But only play disco music.
So a sonic disco gun.
Yes, that shoots laser lights and kills people with the power of.
See, I'm glad that you both went for big over the top weapons that were ranged weapons. I was gonna say I'm actually surprised that no one went with the piranha gun. Uh, but you went for the dubstep disco gun.
I didn't know that was.
I'm
I
happy.
didn't know that was on the table. I changed my answer.
No,
I want
but
the
you
cat
have,
launcher now.
but you have to have cats, or you have to have your ammo inside of you.
And I want a t-shirt launcher that shoots just random t-shirts I have.
You know what? I'm gonna be boring.
I just shoot a t-shirt in someone's face. Yes, I am a sexual predator.
I'm gonna be boring, and I'm gonna say either, I don't know, something martial artsy, and this is the reason why. If I could become a piece of martial arts history, that would be amazing. Like say for instance, someone who's like just starting out on learning how to wield a chain scythe, or a 3-segment staff, or a katana, or something like that. You know, like any of the sort of like Chinese or Japanese martial arts instruments and weapons, stuff like that. Because the skill that is required of them is so incredible. And I think that's the closest thing that you could get to a less lethal version of being flung around like a human nunchuck. I think it'd just be amazing.
Is this a new fetish that you're just working into the podcast? It's like, I really just want to be
guys,
flung.
It's hot. I need to work some stuff out.
Next we're gonna find your girlfriend just sort of like, doing some like kegels and some push-ups. It's like, I gotta lift him. It's what he wants.
No. I just think it's amazing though that we see like some incredible feats done by humans with martial arts weaponry, and it's just like, imagine what it would be like to be the weapon that people know is passed down as an heirloom, or the weapon that is like a really cool design as well. Like I don't know, I just think it's just so cool. Guns. Whereas
Imagine what it would feel like to be held by senpai. To be wielded by senpai.
I mean, another one that I was gonna say is I only just for the sake of it, because I'm now gonna come back to this one, and I'll start this second part of the segment, which is if you could have any special effect, or downside, or some kind of like cheeky little sort of like curse or special effect to go with it, what would it be? And what I was going to say was, or just, I'd love to be a really powerful weapon or object, like a sword or a Zweihander, or some kind of big chunky weapon. But it's like, only someone with a particular type of personality, or only someone with a particular type of like strengths and abilities can lift and wield me. Sort of thing. Like, I just love that idea of just like, anyone who picks up this sword, like, has like all the riches in the world, or basically being Excalibur. Like, like if you lift the sword out of the stone, then you are, the king of Britain. Sort of thing. Like, that is cool to me. Like, but it's like, only who are worthy, or only who are the next successor can wield or something. That's kind of cool. I mean, for instance, if I was to decide that, I'd sort of have like a genie style thing where it's more like basically a weapon that can, for instance, like any kind of weapon at all, I don't really mind, but like that has like a special ability, like maybe like my personality is stuck inside of it, like, for instance, like I really like the big over showy stuff, or I like creation, imagination, creativity and stuff like that, improvise, be strange, don't have to go for the usual beaten path. But I like, to wield me, you also need to be sort of like able to improvise and stuff like that, or even let's be honest, is just a massive fan of weeby shit like myself.
So basically, you want to be the weeb sword. You want to be the weeb sword. Let's just say it. You want to be the.
Or either that, or
you thought
the
mine would be pretentious.
Either that, or like the no. And here's why I'll come back to this, because I thought what would be really, really funny is just being like, for instance, like just being like an Excalibur type sword, but it's like anyone who wields you can like basically manifest a special ability that is considerably right now whatever your favorite special power is, but
whoa, cool.
But the sword has to agree with you that it is also kind of cool. So it's basically I am your DM in sword form.
Oh my god! And it's like, okay, you
the
can
Dungeon
have that,
Master.
You can have that, but you have to use the nerd from Robot Chicken's voice as you do that shake.
Done.
It's so
If
cool.
I have to sound like if I have to sound like yes, now what is your desire? You know what? I was just kind of thinking that maybe like the sword, you know, maybe you could set on fire and we could do some air slash. No, that's lame. That's so fake. Okay. What about if like you like cover yourself in like lightning or something? No, that's so overdone. Oh my gosh. What if I just, every time I hit something, it just turns to gold? Oh, that's so cool! Oh my gosh, I've never done that before! Oh my gosh! So cool!
I want this character. I want this character. Okay, alright, Coid,
Nerd sword.
I want the art done!
Sword of
Nerd
nerd.
sword!
King of... No, and anyone who wields it is classed the king of the nerds. Everyone knows you as the king of the nerds. The nerd
Yes.
king sword.
It's like, can we call this something different? No!
I am the
You
king
are
of
the
nerd
king of-
swords. The nerd king sword. Ex-nerdia.
Ex-nerd, yes.
So, if you could have special abilities or special effects or curses or something as your special weapon forms, what would they be? And why?
Tell us, internet.
And I know exactly what mine would be.
Go on, Sam. You
Mostly
already
because
said
it
shirt gun or disco gun, but do you have anything else or do you have
Disco
anything
gun.
extra?
Yeah, because I remember, right, this was one of the powers I remember seeing in an anime, and I thought, you know what? I would, if I could, this would actually be my power in real life. maybe not like the exact power, but similar enough. It was from the anime Powerpuff Girls Z, if you've ever seen that.
No.
I'm not
It's
sure that, no.
Japan decided, how about we do Powerpuff Girls, but anime? It's significantly different. It's interesting.
I would assume so. What's the power?
Well, it's one of the villains that has the power. I don't know what he's called, but his power is like Disco Clown. Essentially, he dances like he looks like a clown with a big red wig and a big red nose, and he dances the disco, and everyone around him that can hear is like in a radius also becomes a clown and also disco dances, like doing the exact same movements with the exact same song playing always around them.
So basically, you want to be a clown gun. You want to just like...
So, yes. No, essentially, what I would do is that I would just shoot like disco music, and every time I hit someone, they'd just be like,
I got
just
it.
become
The DJ
They just
Ray.
be,
Yes!
The DJ
become-
Ray gun.
What do you call the guy? What do you call the guy from Greece?
John
John Travolta in
John
that
Travolta.
Staying Alive movie.
Oh yeah, that guy.
Oh, yeah, instead, like with the white jacket and the black shirt and that. Essentially, every time I shot people, everyone else around them would just go into that exact pose with that exact outfit.
Basically, large
immediately-
afro, white, like basically white
Maybe
disco
no
suit,
afro.
and basically just hearing "Staying Alive" constantly.
Yeah, just like actually, that's a fate worse than death because they're constantly in that pose, like forever, and you can just like see a little tear, going down from their eyes, saying, "Make it stop."
Oh no, I've got an
Disco
idea.
will never
So,
die.
I've got an idea. So literally, the gun is just called the DJ Ray
BG
gun. The DJ Ray gun, and it has 3 different settings, and it's called BG Blaster, where it just plays "Staying Alive." What was it? Damn it! There was another one. There was a really good one, like a massively famous song. I've suddenly got it stuck in my head, but I can't remember the name of it.
Conferno.
That's it.
No, it's fire damage. Let's go Inferno.
But like for Disco Inferno, instead it's just like Fire on the Dance Floor. What was it? And then there's another.
I mean,
one.
that would be
Murder on the dance floor?
Murder on the dance
Put it on the dance floor. Oh,
Damn it, I can't
DJ. I can't
I
remember
ca-
the lyrics.
Either way, but the DJ Ray gun, that's kind of cool.
I like that.
Oh,
I like that a
that.
lot,
That is-
actually.
Would it be a big
That was fun, I would
bazooka
have.
like thing, like with whatchamacallit, or would it be?
I mean, it would be exactly the weapon from Saints Row the Fourth,
Okay.
where it is just like 2 records playing on this more or less this keyboard device, but it
so it's
shoots
sort
out
of like
rays of light.
so yeah, it's like
Energy.
you're holding it. It's sort of like I guess like a sort of taser gun, sort of,
Yeah,
but with these
I will send it
turntables
to
on
the.
it.
I'll send it to the chat so you know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Let's have a look. See.
Oh, okay, right, okay. It basically looks like Ronald McDonald's.
Yeah,
Plus
because anime.
Alex, what about
So yeah,
you?
it would be.
With your magical, special, cursed power version of a weapon, would your weapon of choice change, or would you just add something to it?
Well, I'm not sure actually, because well, it's difficult for me to say because coming up for a perfect because it's so hard to compete because I kind of want the nerd sword because that would be really cool. It'd be so cool, but
I just like the
I don't
idea
know.
if
I
someone
think.
tries to take up the bird sword and they're not nerdy enough, and it
Oh,
just
I've got
doesn't
one.
lift for them.
I've got one. I've got one. I've got one. It would be the anti-nerd sword. It would be like the. It would be like. It would be the troll Zuka, where like I just ruin everyone's fun by just shooting into the sky, and it just bums everyone out by pointing out their like plot holes for their favorite show. And they're like, "Aw." It's like you can't. So you can't do that. That's
I like the
actually
name
logically
Troll
inconsistent.
Zuka. I kind of like the idea of like it's like literally like a bazooka that just fires out blasts of like these explosions. But what they do is they just basically just it ruins stuff. Kind of like a
Yeah.
reality bending plague.
It just spoils movies that people haven't seen yet. There's that specific one that they were meaning to see.
It's like a
Just
gas
there
that
it is.
just tells people the spoilers, or it hits like a birthday cake and it just turns immediately into just like moldy or something like that, or it's something like you fire it out at like a some kind of like parade or something, and just for some reason there's just a waft of just feces just everywhere. It's like, why does it smell so bad around here? Or even like you just launch it at like basically like say for instance like there's like a massive like riot going on, you just shoot it and everyone just goes like everyone just suddenly realizes, wait, what are we doing? And just starts like they don't even know
Why do
what's
we love
going
each
on.
other?
They just everyone just
start
starts like
kissing?
crying or getting upset with themselves. Like they can't even like they're just like someone's like straight up about to beat someone. You just hit them with it. It's just like, oh, I just hate myself so much.
I'm just using this as a cope for my family issues. Uh, yeah, yeah, okay, I love that. And yeah, there would be the ultimate showdown between gun and sword, nerd versus troll. Yeah, let's do this.
I mean, no offense, your gun would still not be able to stop me loving Spider-Man.
You say that. You say that. Actually, what I will
Sam,
do
we
is that
shall
I'd
work
shoot
together.
you. So we
I
should
mean,
like
nothing can. If one more day didn't do that, and various other deals with the devil he's made.
I mean, to be honest, I'll shoot you and then I'll remind you of the Amazing Spider-Man movies, and your day will be ruined.
And those two movies that are the
Ah,
spawn.
yes, but the best part
Sony's
about the
ass
Nerd
crack.
Sword, it would also remind people, like, yes, those movies were terrible, but it kind of made Andrew Garfield's whole career.
I don't even like Andrew Garfield.
Shut up, we're winning!
Come on, you gotta boost him up. I'm firing a round of troll comments.
Tom Holland is the
anyway,
best Spider-Man.
The thing is, though, then we wouldn't have Tom Holland Spider-Man because they would have probably lost the license. You know what? I will, I mean, I could just have to think about all the great things that are Spider-Man. Like,
Yeah, that would be my only weakness, positivity.
Nicolas Cage. Or, I don't know, the video games.
It would have to be,
Or,
in other words,
like
the
the
true
way-
wielder of the Nerd Sword would have to have, like, the heart of someone who just deeply loves the franchise, even though that it has flaws and problems. It's like, no, but I know if it did suck, then how did it earn so much money? It's like the only way that you can power yourself up is just through like logic and like keep reminding yourself of like good bits about it.
It's like, Yes, those scenes did suck, but they had that deleted scene that made up for it, and it's
No,
free on YouTube.
the final ending part, which
Are
would
you
be sort
doing
of
the
like
Spider-Man 3 again on me,
Yes,
Alex?
yes, I am. Yes, I
final-
am. That's a reference for
the
you.
final ending part though would just be brilliant. Is if there was a moment just at the end of like a movie or an arc or a season where it's just like it's like. But how? How are you getting up? How do you keep getting up? I've put holes in everything. I've made everything seem so bad. And then it's just like the thing of like you just get up and you go, that's the secret. I don't hate it. I love it because I found enjoyment out of it, regardless of whether or not it's flawed. No!
My troll powers are useless.
The truth is, I always knew there were flaws.
That's the secret. That's
my
secret.
secret. I've always loved bad movies. Ultimate move.
I love it. I like that
Hipster
we've
nerd
created.
love.
I like that we've created our own franchise just from this topic. Like we've just created like this is a trilogy of movies with its own arc and own heartwarming ending.
The terrible gun saga. The terrible weapon saga. Tune in next time when we just play as a disco ray gun, a sword of the Nerd King, and a troll Zuka. What? I guess there's not really much else to say about this episode. Actually.
Yeah, I mean, that's it.
Thanks everyone for
behind
listening.
that.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely. I mean, this is the thing, Sam. We've proven you wrong. It's like, one of the good things about, weapon physiology. We've just done it. We've got a whole franchise, that
never
will
said it
be
was
made into an
bad.
anime.
No. Sam never said it was bad. He just said that
Yeah,
like
one of the positives.
that it's hard to say positives, but when they come, there are quite interesting ones that are not necessarily usually conventional. I'd say like obviously there is the usual question, which is the final piece about this. Is obviously we were talking about to make them more interesting, we'll give them special abilities. A lot of other shows do them as well. For instance, Megatron turns into a gun, but Megatron is a freaking gigantic robot. Baby 5 can literally turn into any weapon whatsoever that she chooses, and she can either be wielded by people or wield herself. And the people in Soul Eater, they're partially magic weapons, so they get special magical properties. For instance, they're more durable than normal, or they just have special abilities that allow them to do even more crazy stuff. So, with that, I'd say everything needs an extra special kick to make them interesting. And they've done them. We've seen it now. And as I've said, as Sam has said, and as Alex has said, there are different ways to add to make all powers and special abilities and weapons interesting. So yeah, I guess that's it for weapon physiology. A power that allows you to turn into either any kind of weapon or a weapon. Your body becomes that weapon, or you become partially like it. If you like this, please like and subscribe at Animite Tales, or follow me on Twitter at Animite Tales or Alex at Obscuracom. If you liked what you heard here, or would prefer to actually hear us all play a game, we do fortnightly games where we actually play in a campaign of villains using the system Animite Tales, which is a tabletop RPG that bases itself around superpowers. We are currently doing the showings from 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. British Standard Time, that's BST, and we do Twitch stream them, but then we place them on YouTube here at Animate Tales. The Twitch is Joey the Mystic, so check it out. We also have a Patreon if you'd like to actually help support the game, and also if you do support the game, depending on what tier, you can actually add an NPC or an item or both to the game itself, which will be added at certain points in either the modules as artwork, and you even get a piece of artwork for yourself that will also be sent to you as well as added to the game as a whole. So you get to do that, and you get to make them with me or one of the other admins who know quite a lot about the game's creation, such as my brother or one of the other admins. So if you would like that, then definitely check on out our Patreon at Animate Tales or the Batarians. Thank you very much for listening. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
See you in the future.
That was quite a late delay on that one, guys. I don't think it's gonna work out. Oh, we're still recording.
That's what we call tough, Joe.
Tough indeed. Ciao for now.